As a Persona 5 spin-off/sequel, Strikers was always going to be compared to the original game. Unfair as that comparison may be, I actually think that Strikers doesn't come out looking too bad when all is said and done. The game easily captured the dynamic and feeling of the Phantom Thieves and Persona 5 style, while exploring some new gameplay methods that nevertheless stay entertaining. Couple that with a unique setting, some chances in the writing that I think paid off, and a boatload of charm, and you've got yourself a recipe for an overall solid game. Before I go any further, I do need to issue a spoiler warning for Persona 5, the original game. Strikers is a direct sequel, so while the game is a separate adventure, simply watching footage could spoil stuff. If you're all set or don't care about spoilers, here goes. Persona 5 Strikers, known as Persona 5 Scramble in Japan, is a hack-and-slash action JRPG combining Persona 5 with Dynasty Warriors. The game was developed by Atlus and Koei Tecmo via their studios P Studio and Omega Force, and the game was published by Atlus. The game originally came out in Japan for the PS4 and Switch in February of 2020, and subsequently came to the West in February of 2021 to the same consoles, as well as to Steam. The game performed quite well in Asia, selling over 500,000 copies by the end of 2020, and the numbers are similarly encouraging in the West. Review-wise, the game was pretty positively received, though nowhere near as universally beloved as Persona 5 or Persona 5 Royal were. There is a slight dip in the reviews based on platform, specifically regarding PC, and since I played the PC version, I'll address the reason for that later in the video. Suffice to say though, the general consensus was that Persona 5 Strikers wouldn't blow people away, but was still a good game in its own right. Plot-wise, Persona 5 Strikers picks up with the player character hereafter referred to by his codename Joker, returning to Tokyo along with Morgana to meet up with the rest of the Phantom Thieves for the summer. As this is happening though, a new change of heart epidemic has been spreading throughout Japan, and the Phantom Thieves are the prime suspects. It doesn't take long for the epidemic to reach close to Tokyo, and Joker, along with Morgana and Ryuji, gets caught up in it. They end up in a jail controlled by a monarch named Alice Hiragi after they connect using the new virtual assistant app called Emma. These jails are being used to change the hearts of people by stealing their desires so they do exactly what the monarch tells them, both in the cognitive world where the jails are, and in the real world. Joker and the others manage to escape from Alice's jail the first time with the help of a mysterious AI named Sophia, and they proceed to reform the Phantom Thieves to take on Alice alongside their new ally. As this is going on though, they get confronted by public security inspector Zenkichi Hasegawa, who arranges a deal with the Phantom Thieves to travel around Japan dealing with the jails and monarchs in order to clear their names and find out who is the real culprit. Thus begins a wild summer road trip around Japan for the thieves as they track down jails, learn about hearts, and get in some fun summer activities on the side. Story-wise, because the Phantom Thieves start off as a group at the beginning, that leaves more time for them to interact as a group, which was great to see. Seeing this group of friends grow even closer throughout the story is a great time, since in Persona 5 it was more about their personal growth rather than their friendships as they came together as the Phantom Thieves. That isn't to say they don't grow as well on this journey, but the focus shifts more to how they relate to the different monarchs they encounter and how they help others like Sophia or Zenkichi on their journeys of discovery. The feeling of the writing is very reminiscent of Persona 5 in a good way, but there was one area where the writing was significantly different from the original game. The palace rulers in Persona 5 were not particularly sympathetic characters. The monarchs in Persona 5 Strikers are. Every single one is shown to have had to deal with some trauma or tragedy that led them to the point they're at today. It doesn't excuse what they're doing in the moment, but it explains it. And those traumas tended to be themed to resonate with the experience of at least one of the Phantom Thieves. Not only was this a clever way to garner sympathy for the monarchs, but it also allowed the Phantom Thieves to show their personal growth from the previous game. This improvement in the complexity of the opponents of the Phantom Thieves gave the cast more to work off of, and I would love if the Persona series took the chance to use this style of writing for the main series villains moving forward. Well, at least for some of them, because honestly, not all villains need to be tragic. Sometimes we just want a good hate sink. When it comes to combat, I would describe Persona 5 Strikers as hack-and-slash action with pauses combat. You go around encountering shadows on the regular map screen that you can ambush, attack normally, or get ambushed by, and then your battle arena is closed off until the fight is finished. Then you proceed onwards to whatever challenge awaits you next in the jail while keeping an eye out for treasures or items scattered around the map. You control one character, but can switch at pretty much any time between the other 3 party members with you, both in and out of combat, and summoning your persona pauses combat. The personas themselves function pretty much as in every other Persona game. They have a bunch of abilities, including physical and gun skills that cost health, elemental attacks that cost SP, buffs and debuffs that also cost SP, and lastly heals, which, as you might be able to guess, cost SP to use. Thankfully, SP and HP management is far easier over your run through the jails than for Persona 5's palaces, because you're not on a timer. You can enter and exit the jail as many times as you need before you complete your objective for the day, and that recovers your full HP and SP, so take your time and let the game come to you. Overall, the combat has the trappings of Persona combat, enough to make you feel comfortable if you've played a Persona game before, but there are enough distinct elements for you to need to concentrate and learn the system to effectively handle bosses or tougher enemies. While this is an adjustment that needs to be made for all players, once you have changed your mindset, the combat really opens up, especially for the tougher fights. Timing your attacks, dodges, and switches are crucial to breaking down the enemies, getting those extra one-mores, building up your showtime meter to unleash those flashy, well-designed and animated moves, and finishing them off with an all-out attack. I also advise paying attention to your surroundings because the game has many objects in combat areas that can be interacted with and dropped or exploded on enemies to give you an edge. The combat can feel very satisfying. It's certainly not as deep as some action game series with decades to work on making their action combat, but for a hybrid system, I was quite impressed with what Strikers offered. At first while playing, I didn't think the characters played all that differently, but as I proceeded and got better, I started noticing the subtle ways each party member moved or used their special moves that would show their uniqueness. The master arts you unlock over time playing a particular character are the most important ways they function differently. Likewise, the enemies at first seemed pretty much the same apart from the Monarch fights, but over time they too appeared more complex. Just in time for that enemy type to no longer be a threat in standard battles, but you take what you can get. And trust me, if you want challenge with Strikers, you can find it with the dire shadows, redoing boss battles, or even changing the difficulty, which you can do at any point in the game. As for out-of-jail gameplay, there is not a lot that comes over from Persona. No classes, no confidant building, no being yelled at by a cat to go to sleep. Must be a strange feeling for Joker. Instead, in the rare moments when you're not hanging out with the group or moving through the jails, you get the chance to do a little exploring around the many locations in the game. Take the time and talk to your friends, interact with the various locations, objects, and stores, and you'll get some nice detailing for the scenario in-game. There are times though when you have a specific task to perform, such as tracking down information about one of the monarchs in real life, or if you've been given a request, completing that to get some bond points. Most of these requests are pretty simple to complete, but they do range in what they ask you to do, from delivering items to party members to reaching a certain point in a jail without detection. I always advise to complete them if you can though, because most give good rewards such as unlocking more items at Sophia's store or bond points. Your bond level fills up over time as you complete these requests and proceed in the story, and you then use the points from leveling up in the bond system to upgrade certain abilities. These can be combat abilities, such as improving your damage from showtime attacks, but they can also be out of combat related, such as improving your cooking skill or increasing the number of sales at the in-game store. You should definitely take advantage of these upgrades because they are crucial down the line to make sure you're well equipped and prepared for whatever fight lies ahead. Now, as for how the game looks, the game's aesthetic is still the stylish, order and chaos format with its UI, but it is just as easily navigable as Persona 5's, so it continues to be a highlight for the game. The art in-game is similarly good, especially the fully animated cutscenes from the opening to important in-game scenes. There are some rougher in-game models due to the different engine though, but it's not all that noticeable unless you're searching for it. The reused elements retain their charm and the new designs, menus, and the like fit into the world smoothly. I would also note that all of the new locations are vibrant and distinct between all of them. It feels more like you are traveling through Japan and seeing a bunch of different locations, although that might be because they are specifically building off of the actual real-life locations. Musically, the most standout tracks to me were the ones that came over from Persona 5 and were remixed for Strikers, although I do think they relied on those as a crutch at times. There are some really good new tracks, but I think as a whole the soundtrack was good, but not mind-blowingly amazing like Persona 5 or Persona 5 Royals were. Still some good listening that you'll get to have over the course of the game. Lastly, the main voice actors all returned and clearly had a lot of fun with these characters again. The new cast fits in well too, with some surprisingly big gets such as the actual voice for Ciri to voice Emma among the cast. When it comes to the sights and sounds of the game, Persona 5 Strikers does a superb job of making them as good as possible. That, at last, brings me to the PC port, and why the review scores are lower for it. The game upon release on PC had bugs and crashes that persisted for a good while. I had the game crash on me twice before they issued a hotfix that has stopped all crashes for me. However, I did get a consistent audio bug where the game audio would just cut out during certain moments, mainly when I was going back and forth through screens in Sophia's shop. This didn't really affect my enjoyment, but it is hard not to notice when the game just stops playing audio. Lastly, the PC port simply doesn't take advantage of the PC as a platform. 60 FPS is the cap, only 9 save slots, and not much in terms of graphical improvements from the console versions. That last point is a little more nitpicky, but I have seen Sega do better with other ports, such as for Valkyria Chronicles 4. Whoever is calling the shots over at Atlus or Sega needs to adjust how they do the PC ports so there aren't as many consistent issues like Persona 4 Golden or 5 Strikers had. The potential is there for the PC versions to be excellent, and they just haven't lived up to that promise yet. The game is still good, and I'm glad it's on PC, but it's time for them to take the next step to giving a good quality port to the Atlus games on PC. Coming off of that slight downer note, I will conclude by saying that Persona 5 Strikers is a solid sequel that has a good plot and an enjoyable gameplay loop and system. It is very distinct from the main series, however, it maintains enough of a connection to the source series to feel like it belongs in that world, even if you need to take some time to learn its unique systems instead of relying on your prior knowledge of the series. Along with the fun new characters and continued excellence in artistic vision, I'd certainly recommend Strikers to any fans of Persona 5. If you've given Persona 5 Strikers a chance, feel free to weigh in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, giving a like will help free the desires stolen by the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to keep up with me and the channel, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Have a great day, and happy gaming!